Welcome to Spam Filter for Your Brain, bite-sized ponderings on how our thoughts influence our behaviour and our lives, and because we're all connected, how our thoughts impact the world. I'm here to help people reconnect with their bodies and declutter their brains. And I don't believe that we should just magically know how our emotions and our thoughts impact our lives if no one ever teaches us. So let's learn this stuff together. When I first heard about coaching, I had no idea what it actually meant. It seemed really peculiar that someone would call themselves a life coach, like someone would know more about my life than I do. And I really steered away from it for about 10 years, not really understanding what it was, but feeling like it was a little bit cultish and like someone was trying to tell me about myself. And that brought up all kinds of inner teenagerness for me. And this week, I wanted to speak to you about how I use this stuff in my everyday life so that you can see how this stuff can be useful for you in your everyday life and just to try and get your brain on side so you're not at the mercy of these thoughts that we all have going on in our heads all the time that are really busy. So one of the key tools that I use and I encourage other people to use is to do what I call a thought download. Now, just take a piece of paper, could be back of a receipt, could be back of an envelope, could be a notebook that you work in studiously, and set a timer for a few minutes, 3 minutes tops, and just fill that piece of paper with your thoughts. Do a complete stream of consciousness, whatever's going on for you. And if you want to fill that piece of paper with, I don't know why I'm doing this feels really stupid, I just feel like I'm following orders and I don't even know why I'm trying this obviously isn't going to work. Like, write it all down, whatever comes up for you. And often, I find more often than not, what we uncover is something that's bubbling away in the background that's bothering us. And sometimes we come up with a thought that is like, wow, I had no idea that that was lurking around in the background, disturbing and disrupting my day. And I just had one of those instances, and I wanted to come on and record this podcast for you today to show you how I work through this stuff in real time, because I just landed on a thought that really shocked me that it was sat there. So I was doing this free writing exercise that I do every single day because I know what my life's like if I don't do it. And out popped this sentence from my brain: if I was thinner, my life would be easier. And I was like, okay, I mean, systemically, that's probably true. Thin people do get treated better than fat people. And then my brain went, if I was thin, I would have to admit that everything going wrong is all my fault. It's like, wow, that is one hell of a demon to be lurking around in the background. And I paused on this thought with all the tools that I teach in self-care school. And I noticed what was going on there. And rather than judging myself for having it, if I was thin, I would have to admit that all the stuff that has gone wrong is my fault. And I paused and I thought, okay, do I really believe that everything has gone wrong? And I invite you to just pause for a minute and think, what would you do if that thought came up for you? Because I'm sure a version of it does. If I had X, then actually I can't get that thing because I'd have to admit that everything else is my fault. If I got that one thing that I've been striving for, all of the other stuff, the buck stops with me. What would you do with that sentence? Because what I chose to do with it, and this is a skill that I teach within self-care school, as I stopped and went, hang on a minute, do I actually believe that everything's gone wrong? What do I mean by this phrase, everything's gone wrong? It's something that we can kind of recite to ourselves like it's a truth, but hang on a minute, what do I mean by that? And I peeled down a layer and I was like, oh, I mean, my life has gone wrong. And I paused and I sat with that for a minute. I was like, do I really believe that? Do I believe that my life has gone wrong? Because I kind of enjoy my life. I get up every day and I'm excited to come to work and I love the things that I do and I'm surrounded by incredible humans and I can still find the silliness and joy in the tiny things and, life's pretty amazing. So why am I thinking everything has gone wrong? And what it comes down to is this messaging that we should be always building, achieving, growing to a particular goal. I recently learned the phrase escalator relationships, which I really like in terms of cultural construct of how relationships should be. You know, you meet someone, you start going from a few dates, then they're your partner, your boyfriend, your husband, housewife, kids, all the rest of it. Brilliant extra wife in there, wasn't there? Let's leave that there because, let's not make it all so normative. But this idea that we're always doing something to try and build to a bigger goal. And actually, why do we want that bigger goal is because we want to achieve happiness. We think that if we do all of these things and we get all of the jigsaw pieces in place, then the last one's going to slot in and bingo, I'm happy now. And actually, I don't believe that that's true. And I've never seen an example of where that's true. Every single person is working towards a particular goal, and they sometimes get there and sometimes they don't. And even when they get there, things shift and change. It's sort of like Tetris. It all sort of falls down and tumbles down, and there's a new layer of like, oh, wow, people move on, things move on, people die, jobs get lost, money moves, energy shifts, people change all kinds of directions. This thing that we think that we are going to achieve is never going to be achieved unstable and done. Like life carries on the other side of that goal. And if we are looking at that goal as like the final point where we're allowed to be happy, we're going to be pretty disappointed because things aren't stagnant. Everything is in flux the whole time. And what I realized was actually, as I am no longer chasing this whole dream of what I was taught would give me happiness, the marriage, kids, house, job, career prospect in my middle in 40s over here, it finally dawned on me as I was doing this thought download this morning that actually not only do I really love my life, but actually I'm not seeking a goal anymore. What I'm seeking is to love the hell out of every single day. I'm seeking to choose to love this adventure with the wholeness of my heart. I want to get to the end of every day in whatever way that feels right in that day to go, I love the shit out of this life. I love the shit out of the people around me. And I always try to be kind. And that's really important to me. I think kindness is a vastly underrated value. Do I think that my life's gone wrong? No. But will it impact my everyday, my decisions, my actions, the way that I feel about things, the things that I do put out there and create? If in the background I have this little murmur, if I was thin, then I would have to admit that everything going wrong is my fault. Self-care school teaches this magnifying glass where we can just kind of like take these little parasites out of our brain and go, hey, what are you still doing here? This is not my messaging. This is not my work. This is not my beliefs. And you got to go. This thought over here, you got to go. And I teach you how to work this stuff through, how to stretch it out, how to put it under a magnifying glass so it dissipates. I think quite often we can find these uncomfortable thoughts, we can find these level of judgment, and we can be like, oh, I do not want to look at that. That is just so full of shame for me. But in truth, when you don't look at this stuff and you try and push it all down, it just seeds and it roots and it grows. There is an analogy that's quite often used in self-development work about pushing a beach ball underwater and the idea that like the harder you hold it underwater, the bigger the impact it is when it comes out. And I think what a lot of people miss about that analogy is you don't know where it's going to come out. You know who it's going to splash in the face. You don't know who it's going to kick. It's quite likely to be you. Having a toolkit to try and bring ourselves home to the things that are important to us, to stop these little things seeding in the background, is the closest thing that I have ever found to peace. And honestly, it's the reason why I can sit on a camera. I used to hate being on camera. It's the reason that I can sit here today with such confidence and tell you with my full chest, I love this life. I really love this life. And I bring a lot of love to the people around me. My ultimate question always comes down to if I have the choice, the thing that is most important to me is I want to sit on my deathbed and be able to answer the question with my full heart, did I love well? And if anything isn't leading me towards answering that question, I'm not that interested in doing it. If you'd like to be able to unpack some of this stuff yourself, so that life can just feel more joyful, more breezy. And so it can feel like the greatest adventure of you trying to navigate how we play, how we jump from problem solving to problem solving, rather than thinking that we're just constantly climbing this escalator to get something which is forever out of reach. I'd love that for you too. Do come over to Self-Care School, where we teach this stuff to ourselves and we learn from others. It's packed with courses. You get weekly group coaching. You get a lot of the inside of my brain. There's learning for all kinds of styles. There's a workbook library. There are courses. There are things to listen to, things to fill out. There are places that you can communicate with others about what's going on for you. It's a really beautiful hub of nourishing learning and love. I'd love to see you inside. Thanks for listening this week. Please go and play, have great adventures. And if you have the time and the space and the desire to make things a bit easier, I'd thoroughly recommend that idea of filling that piece of paper with all of your thoughts. Try it, see how it works out. Let me know how you get on. I'll speak to you next week. If you've been enjoying what you're hearing on the podcast, you will love Self-Care School. Self-Care School is longer versions of this, more in-depth and more personalised. We have a whole hub of courses from body image to boundaries, perfectionism, time management, and a whole range of other topics. You name it, there's probably a course on it. But most importantly, we also have a weekly group coaching call where you get to apply this stuff to your everyday life and get support to try and untangle your own story from some of the emotions that you might not be enjoying in your life. If you would like to learn how to apply this work to your specific situation and to be building a life of your dreams, I would love to see you inside. Do pop over to selfcareschool.co.uk.